You know, sometimes you just don't need additional income to keep you going with a project that will take weeks and even months to complete without adding much value to the global YouTube scene. And since my last video has practically been met with crickets, I'll just drop the black text boxes for this video and see what happens. In case you're not just listening to this video in the background, you're seeing a kind of project that I talked about in the beginning. It's my passion project to provide a playthrough video of GTA 4 with the cutscenes and dialogue subtitled into Finnish, the native language of me and many of my followers. And no, I won't burn the subtitles into the video stream itself, but I'll upload them as a separate SRT file, so that I can retroactively fix whatever errors surface afterward without re-uploading the whole thing. The image you see of GTA 4 in the timeline might look quite bad, but that's not how it'll look in the final video that I'll upload someday. You see, I'm knowingly playing my edits back using a specialized DNxHR codec, which is made to remove the lag you might experience when directly editing video files with the more popular H.264 codec, which is mainly designed for delivery and viewing instead of editing. Once it's time to export this project into a single video file, I'll just apply all the edits I've made to the higher quality MKV files that I recorded using OBS. These lower quality editing copies are commonly known as proxies or proxy files in the context of video editing. And regardless of your hardware, proxy files make things a lot smoother, assuming you have the disk space to store the proxy files throughout your project. As a language of only 5+ million speakers in the world, Finnish is one of those languages that, for the most part, only interests a few enthusiasts after the Finnish speakers themselves. If you don't speak Finnish, you could think of this GTA project as a unique way to see how the game could be interpreted in the language. And keep your mind in the term interpreting, because not only do Finnish and English belong to different language groups, but the differences in certain terminologies and vocabularies are so vast that as a translator, I have to make a lot of sacrifices and use a bit of creativity at times. Also, as this isn't an official Finnish translation by any means, my translation is closer to a proof of concept than anything. In addition to serving as an amusing Finnish interpretation, it's meant to unwrap some USA-specific terms that might be difficult to fully understand by a Finnish reader. Though because our language doesn't have an army of dubbers and localizers to isolate us from the English language, many Finnish people are quite good at English. A bit of self-studying is our only way to stay informed about foreign influences and phenomena. Our local media is mediocre at best, and for instance, I can almost always tell what Donald Trump said in English when reading a Finnish translation of his commentary. And in my opinion, our language is getting crushed by the pressure coming from the English-dominant world around us, which is why I've made a conscious choice to make my GTA 4 translation sound as native as possible to the Finnish reader. Fan translations to video games just might end up my biggest role and purpose in this world, next to some fan covers of the soundtrack of the 90s cartoon about Moomins that kind of took me to where I've been to this day. At least doing a fan translation like this without modding the game itself is a lot safer in terms of copyright control. Which is why I'm kind of having a love-hate relationship with the Moomin franchise that's only lately gained a huge global fandom. Moomins kind of used to be Finland and Europe exclusive back in the day, but nevertheless Moomins are such a big thing in Finland that you can't avoid them once you land here. If you've been watching this video instead of just listening to it, you must know by now that there's a bit of editing going on in my upcoming playthrough video in addition to the subtitles. My similar projects for Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 didn't have as many edits, and in the latter I made a regrettable mistake of playing the game with the in-game subtitles turned on. In this project, I'm timing my subtitles and using a combination of Grok, GTA Wiki, and Google Translate to get past the toughest parts, such as the unique accents of Little Jacob and Real Batman. As even English speakers might have a hard time understanding them, I've had to rely on a bit of research about the so-called Rasta talk or Iarik, which is the flavor of English spoken by Little Jacob. So how do you go about translating from English Rasta talk to understandable Finnish? Well, it's basically the same as with the other lines, but with one more step. Oftentimes it's easier for me to just ask Grok to translate a line from Jacob into regular English, after which I can come up with a contextually fit Finnish translation. For stylistic reasons, Rockstar didn't bother to translate Jacob's accent for the in-game subtitles, maybe assuming that Jacob in Batman would be intelligible enough. A legendary example is a line from Batman in the mission called Shadow, where he rants to Nico about his drug business being mismanaged by other dealers in Bohan. I don't want to spoil my translation of that just yet, but let's just say that I used a lot of creative synonyms for ordinary words to retain the effect that Batman's ranting has on the viewer. And yes, even though tools like Google Translate have improved significantly since the dawn of LLMs or large language models, you'll still need a native speaker to supervise and fine-tune the translations if you feel like you can't come up with anything yourself. But for real, this is the only kind of stuff I'm doing in my spare time these days, except for gobbling down some good-tasting shit while watching something on YouTube. I even had to put a timer on for my gameplay sessions, so that I wouldn't end up fainting and hurting myself due to the dizziness caused by blood sugar swings or whatever. And I just might have to apply the same for my time on my PC as a whole. I have nothing else that gives me a sense of purpose in life than making content, no matter how long it takes before I actually have something to upload. In a way, it's the editing process itself that I'm addicted to. Even if I objectively did anything more valuable, like being one of the workers on a construction site, it would most likely feel like death compared to this. I've never figured out socializing, and being in social settings can easily trigger an unbearable feeling of loneliness for me, as opposed to just being alone in my apartment. I can't stand being a passive bystander, which is the role that I've pretty much gotten used to in my adult years. Not that I'll attend social settings if I have the choice, but still, I can't stand being the guy who's just an NPC and an ornament in a social setting. Yet my confidence got so fucked up by my bullies in middle school that it hasn't gone back to my elementary level ever since. So, in other words, my loneliness is kind of debilitating, to the point where being a hermit feels way more peaceful than trying to reconnect with other people. And as this situation has continued from my puberty to my current age of 35, my whole brain structure has adapted and basically turned me into the Dr. Eggman of video editing. To turn all this around, you'd basically have to upload all the information about my history to the brains of random people so that there could potentially be anyone who could relate to me. I mean, obviously I do have fans who subscribe to this channel as well, but I refer to people who I could realistically hang around with from time to time. I'm a carless bum who lives on government benefits in the capital of Finland, and the public transport beyond the immediate neighbors of my municipality is a bit shoddy, while most of my Finnish fans seem to live all across Finland. And what the fuck does this have to do with the project I've been talking about in this video? Well, it gives you a valuable context for why I'm being so delicate for a single video, as you might be able to tell based on the DaVinci Resolve timeline I've used as footage for this video. I'm even speeding up most of the sections where I'm driving or walking from point to point, so that if anyone happens to use my upcoming video as a walkthrough, they won't be bored by the driving sections that tend to be rather slow. I'm also using the voice isolator on 11 Labs to remove potentially copyrighted background music when necessary, as even with the music turned off, the game still has cutscenes and places with background music. At this point, I've also made a dedicated soundtrack for the moment where I took Michelle to an Irish bar and Nico ends up getting himself wasted. And just so that people won't have to ask where this or that music came from, I'm going to have a descriptive text of whatever song I've put on the background at the upper left corner. Not that it made any difference whatsoever, but my upcoming playthrough video will be full of these little quality of life additions. But seriously, whatever talents I have that will count in the age of AI will most likely just serve whatever following I'm able to get online. If AI apps weren't able to create decent music just by prompts, then sure, I'd sound more believable to whoever gives a fuck about my online output. If there's one thing that would apply regardless of AI, it's that trying your best never pays off. In schools, they already give you more work the faster you do the tasks. All in all, the system doesn't reward efficiency and competence, but social gifts, which is why prices are getting higher and higher as the talented people rightly give up on the system that doesn't appreciate their competence. Never expect to get in the spotlight for things that matter to you. Expect to be misunderstood by the masses who randomly discover your video by algorithmic recommendations, if ever. All in all, expect to live like Nico Bellic without the bloody violence, that is. And just like last time, I want to let you know that at this point, the video is about to end, and that you're free to give feedback in the form of likes or comments if you found this video interesting.